The photograph shows nothing unusual. A cottage in the Welsh countryside, a stone fireplace, a family gathered for Christmas dinner, their faces frozen in 1923 candlelight. But look closer at the corner of the hearth. A shape, a silhouette no larger than a child, standing where no one stood, watching, waiting. It had been there all evening and no one had invited it in. Calm. For thousands of years, humans have gathered around fire. We carved hollows in cave walls to hold flame. We built temples around hearths. We told our children bedtime stories while the embers glowed. And in nearly every culture that mastered fire, a strange belief emerged. Something already lived beside that flame. Something old. Something that would never leave. Something that never knocked. Inquisitive. In Russia, peasants called it the Domovoi, a guardian spirit bound to every household. Old texts describe it as small, hairy, prone to hiding under thresholds. But its most important characteristic was this: it followed the family fire. When a Russian household moved, they would take a coal from the old hearth and carry it to the new one. The Domovoi would ride that coal into the new home. It arrived before the family did. It was already waiting. Dread. In Scotland, the brownie worked the night shift. Witnesses described it as a small figure in ragged clothing, appearing only after dark. It would sweep floors. It would churn butter. It left behind strange, muddy footprints in the morning, but only near the hearth, never near the door. The brownie never used the front entrance. It used the fire. Calm. German folklore preserved a similar memory in the Heinzelmännchen of Cologne. These tiny workers appeared at night, their laughter echoing from the rafters. But they, too, entered through the chimney flue. Photographs from the 1890s show German families leaving small bowls of cream by empty fireplaces. Not for Santa, but for the household spirits who arrived through smoke and shadow. Inquisitive. Here is where the pattern becomes unsettling. In 1877, the folklorist William Henderson published his Notes on the Folklore of the Northern Counties. He collected over 200 testimonies about hearthside visitations. 93% of them shared one detail. The presence appeared at the fireplace before any other location in the home. It materialized at the fire first, always at the fire. Dread Romanians had their own version. The spiriduș lived in the attic but fed at the hearth. Hungarian households maintained a tradition called tuscestes, placing a portion of every meal into the flames as an offering. The belief was explicit. Something invisible ate before the family did. It consumed the essence of the food from the heat itself. Calm. But perhaps the most detailed accounts come from Icelandic sagas. The landvetter, land spirits, were said to maintain a presence at farmhouse hearths throughout the winter. The Icelandic sagas describe rituals where the head of household would greet the fire each morning with specific words, a formal greeting to something already present. Inquisitive. Why the fireplace? The answer lies in what fire represented to pre-industrial peoples. The hearth was the heart of the home, linguistically and literally. The Old English word hurgd meant both hearth and home. In Latin, focus meant fireplace and center simultaneously. The fire was the soul of domestic space, and wherever humans locate the soul of a place, folklore insists something else already lives there. Mainstream scholars offer a clean explanation. Hearth spirits, they say, were psychological projections. Fire offered comfort in cold, dark winters. The human mind, desperate for companionship, invented invisible roommates. This is called anthropomorphism, our tendency to see personalities in natural phenomena. The warmth of the fire became a warm presence, simple, satisfying, calm. But consider this: if hearth spirits were purely imaginary, Why do they share such specific characteristics across unconnected cultures? Why did the Domovoi, the brownie, and the spiridouche all arrive through the same entrance? Why did all three prefer to be fed after midnight? Why did they all, without cultural contact between them, choose the hearth as their primary dwelling? Dread. Here is an alternative view, less comfortable but perhaps more honest. Every human culture that mastered fire encountered something in that mastery. Fire was the first technology that transformed night into day. It was the first tool that made outdoor spaces uninhabitable and indoor spaces sacred. When humans brought fire inside, they may have crossed a threshold they did not understand. And something on the other side noticed, inquisitive. The hearth created a new kind of darkness, the darkness outside the fire's reach. In that darkness, early humans sat vulnerable, their backs to shadows, their faces lit by flame. This posture, researchers note, triggers deep neurological responses. The prehistoric brain learned to scan that darkness constantly. But what if the scanning went both ways? What if something in that darkness learned to scan back? Calm folklorist Linda Degg proposed something radical in 1979. She suggested that hearth spirit traditions preserved genuine historical memory, memories of an earlier human population that lived alongside our ancestors. Small people, she theorized, who retreated to the margins when larger populations expanded, who were eventually seen as spirits rather than neighbors, who learned to approach human fire for warmth and sustenance. Dread. There is a detail that haunts this theory. In nearly every hearth spirit tradition, the entity is described as shy. It flees if seen directly. It works only in darkness. It hides when acknowledged openly. This is not the behavior of a powerful supernatural being. This is the behavior of something that has learned to survive by remaining invisible. 6:30:8. Modern echo. Open question. Today, we no longer burn wood in our homes. We flip switches. We adjust thermostats. The modern fireplace is decorative, a simulation of warmth without its essence. We have perhaps accidentally sealed ourselves away from whatever once visited the hearth. Calm. And yet the traditions persist, somewhat. In December, we hang stockings by the fireplace. We leave cookies and milk for someone who arrives without knocking, through the chimney. We tell our children that a guest will visit tonight, unseen, and that we have prepared a gift for their arrival. We have forgotten why we do this, but the ritual remains. Inquisitive. In 2019, a survey conducted by the University of Edinburgh found that 34% of British households with working fireplaces reported unusual experiences near the hearth. Cold spots, the smell of wood smoke when no fire burned, sounds from empty flues. The researchers attributed these to environmental factors, air currents, acoustics, suggestibility. Calm. Perhaps they are right. Perhaps the guest that visits every hearthside is nothing more than memory and shadow, the residue of ancient fears and hopes. But consider this before you dismiss the old stories entirely. Every night for 10,000 years, humans gathered around a fire and felt, without knowing why, that they were not alone. Dread. The photograph from 1923 sits in a Welsh archive. The silhouette in the corner has never been explained. The family in the image died decades ago, but the fire in that hearth, according to the photographer's notes, was still warm when the photograph was taken. Inquisitive. Open question. If something has always lived beside our fires, something patient and invisible and shy, why has it stayed? What is it waiting for? Next episode tease. Next time on Phantomatlas. They say the sea keeps no memories, but the lighthouse keepers of Point Reyes would disagree. Until then, keep your fire burning, and perhaps leave a coal burning in the grate just in case something is watching from the other side of the flame. End. Word count, approximately 1,150 words.